Hi, everyone. Welcome to Truth and Love Ministries. Tonight we have a good friend of mine, Steve Kitts, here to speak. We are really excited to hear what he has to say. If you all would welcome him.
Good evening, everybody. I'm so thankful for this opportunity to speak with y'all. I understand that why most people come. I want you to know that I'm here because I care as well. You may not know me and I may not know you, but that's okay because we're all children of God. I'll let you know that I'm no better than you are. Most people don't realize that they are only one bad decision away from getting in trouble. Thank God for that Jesus died and lived for each one of us. Amen. Today I have a word that's heavy on my heart. The word is hope. We all know the word, and then sometimes all we have to do is use some of it in some form or another. I hope to eat today. I hope that today is the day that my situation turns around. I hope my family is doing well. I hope. While I was deployed in the Army to fight the war in Iraq, and that was Desert Storm back in 1991, I had hoped that all my training would kick in. I had hoped that I would be able to defeat the enemy and defend our freedom. I had hoped that I would return back to the United States in one piece. Well, I did return back to the U.S., but it was 3 years later. By the time I had gotten to Germany to start in the war was already over. I didn't have to go into combat, but I helped those return from combat back to the stateside. My family and I stayed in Germany to help send the troops home after the war. God protected me, and I didn't know it until later on. After serving in Germany, Uncle Sam decided that it was time for me to join the soldiers at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, the famous 101st Airborne Division. That was a large and a powerful historical unit. It was famous for turning many battles into victories in many different wars. I was blessed to be in the headquarters command office. While there, God placed me in a job that allowed me some freedom from extra duties and chores, but it also required me to train and to exercise and look like a modeled soldier. My group was in charge of entertaining the VIPs that would come on post. That was the very important people. I could see a retired general, a vice president, senators, governors, people like that. And my job was to make sure that they were where they needed to be, at what time they needed to be, whatever event they had to do on post. Through all the training and the work, I had hoped that one day I would be able to return home. I hoped that my family was doing well without me while I was there. They had lived here in La Follette while I was gone being a soldier. I had hoped that they would know that I loved them, and even if it was from afar. While I was at Fort Campbell, I transferred from the 101st Airborne Division to the 86th Combat Support Hospital. It was like a MASH unit. They would set up mobile hospitals and fly into different areas. While there, a lot of my military training and things were going real well, but my home life was falling apart. I had hoped that we could survive being separated, but that wasn't the case. My wife was tired of having to do it all herself, do all the parenting and raising our 4 children by herself. In her eyes, I was off having fun without any responsibilities at home. In a way, she was right. But in my eyes, I was doing what I needed to do to put food on the table and money in the bank. But money never is enough. Money will never replace your time with your family. Money can't buy happiness or love. About this time, the military sent me orders with a change of duty station, as they do. I was being sent to Korea for 18 months. Most people know that the Korean War never ended. They're still fighting today, but they had just stopped attacking each other. My assignment was to work at a gymnasium that soldiers would come to and exercise. That would have been an easy job, but it was still in a combat zone. War could break out at any time, and to my wife, that was the last straw. She said, "You can go, but you will go as a divorcee. I will divorce you." My heart was destroyed. I hoped that she was just mad. That was until the divorce papers arrived. She had filed for divorce on me. She meant business this time. God was in this, but I didn't know until later on. I had to get out of the Army to save my marriage and rebuild my home life. I can tell you that it was harder than training for combat. All I knew was how to prepare to kill and defend those around me. I had a certain mindset. Years of fighting a foreign enemy was nothing compared to the fight that I had ahead of me, a fight for my family. I knew that I had what I had to do to make my family complete as a man. It was hard for me to say that I was sorry and how wrong I was. I had a hardened heart. I cared and I wanted to do good, but I found it hard to let somebody in. I had a combat mindset. I had built up walls around my feelings. I didn't go to church back then, and I hoped that I could fix everything on my own. But I couldn't fix things on my own. All I could do was mess things up. I needed help, but I was too prideful to ask for it. I didn't have answers, and I didn't have direction. It wasn't until I came back to God that I turned my life over to Him that I found the help that I needed. God, the creator of this rock that we live on, is bigger than any of our problems. I found that God was waiting on me to decide that I needed His help, and He was willing to help me. God gave me hope when I had no hope. When God came on the scene and then considered the problem solved, that's what happened to me. God restored me and my family. Does my family still have stories of how I used to be? Sure they do. And things that they say about me are in the past. It's different now and very changed. Most of us are serving God, and it isn't easy. But He will never put more on us than we can bear. You see, I was saved as a young teenager, and I served God all the way through high school and a little bit after graduation. Then I decided to turn wild and ungodly. I was drinking and smoking and popping pills, sleeping around like nobody's business. The game I sorted with other people's emotions and feelings. I didn't care. I had left God. You hear me? I left God. He didn't leave me. I left God and acted like I never knew Him. I wasted too much time. While I was out doing all I could do to not be a Christian, He was still protecting me and watching over me, and I didn't know it until later. Many of us have times that we could say and look back, how did I survive that? I had many of those days. God protects us from ourselves. Sure, we might still go through some things, but God is the only one that we can turn to. It's like God was saying to me, I will put you back on the right path, but you have to come back to me. The path to heaven and not the road to hell. We are strong believers that you need to know where your final destination is, whether it's heaven or hell. Your last breath is your last day or your first day in eternity. The great thing that it's all up to us on where we end up. Nobody else's choice but ours. So having hope is very important. Hope gets you through to the next breakthrough. God helped me turn my hope into I know. I know that when I die, and we all will at some point, that I'm going to heaven and not hell. Today, you need to make your mind up about your eternity. Whether to choose the devil in this world or God and a life in heaven forever. The hardest thing for me to do in my life was to admit that I couldn't fix things. I needed hope and help. This came from God alone. The easiest thing that I ever did was to trust God with it and let Him help me. I feel like most of you know that God, how you are living, isn't how that life planned for you, that you planned for yourself. You had better hopes and dreams. You need that hope and you need that dream. God can turn and change things in your pathway. Take courage in knowing that as long as we have breath in us, then we can call out to God and allow Him in our hearts. When we try to fix things ourselves, we often succeed for a little while. Then it falls right back into the same old ways. When God changes you, you will never desire the old ways. We are changed persons with a new home in heaven awaiting us. And thank you all for your time, and I hope that this found some hope in this message. God is our hope, and He is our forever. Thank you.
Amen. All right, thank you, Steve, so much for coming out tonight. You know, me and my family, we just love him. We've known him a long time, and we just really appreciate him. And I thank everyone that watched tonight or